It's time to piss off some people with our opinions. Hey, what's up? Dynasty making a Mortal Kombat tier list using tiermaker.com, and they have given us every Mortal Kombat game, I believe, other than maybe like Mortal Kombat Unchained. So, ranking every Mortal Kombat game with your S tier, your A tier, your B tier, your C tier, and your D tier. I've never done a tier list before in my life, so drop a like for first times here on the channel, because this is something that's been requested for years, and I figure, hey, let's piss people off today. So with that said, drop a like for some more tier list. And before we get into this, I want to say a big shout out to today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by HelloFresh. HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit service where you can get seasonal recipes and fresh proportioned ingredients delivered straight to your doorstep. It makes cooking at home fun, easy, and affordable. You clicked on a Mortal Kombat video, so chances are you've seen Scorpion and Baraka's methods of cooking. And honestly, they're great Mortal Kombat characters, but I don't know if they're great chefs. Kinda messy. Wasteful, if you will. With HelloFresh, you get pre-proportioned ingredients, which means you're cutting down by 25% on your typical food waste per meal. Plus, all the produce comes straight from the farm to your doorstep in under a week, so you can always guarantee what you're eating is gonna be fresh. Most people typically use the same recipes week after week after week, and let's be honest, that can kinda get repetitive really fast. But with HelloFresh, you can try something new and learn some new cooking skills too. Earlier this year, I managed to use one of my favorite content creators' HelloFresh codes and got a couple of free meals, and not only were they really tasty and good, but they weren't hard to cook and make at all. So after having a great experience myself, I figure, hey, why not share that with you guys as well? You can use my link or go to HelloFresh.com and use coupon code POGDynasty16 for up to 16 free meals plus 3 surprise gifts across 6 HelloFresh boxes and free shipping. Thanks for letting me keep the lights on HelloFresh, and let's get into today's video. I don't really have a method to how we're doing this, so I'm gonna just start things off with the best and worst and work our way in between. So, in my opinion, the worst Mortal Kombat game ever pieced together was Mortal Kombat 4. So, Mortal Kombat 4, you get the first D tier ranking, and honestly, some people love this game, but I've made it pretty abundantly clear over the channel over years and years that I just don't like anything about this game. Granted, this game gave us some hilarious ladder endings and things like that, some meme potential, but outside of the meme potential, I didn't like the gameplay, didn't like the graphics. This first ever 3D take on Mortal Kombat, I thought it was a flop. Like, I was probably, I don't know, I'm 26 now, a kid growing up when this dropped. I remember playing it like at the movie theater on the arcade machines and just thinking like, this is so much worse than Mortal Kombat 3 as a kid. And as an adult, I stand by that. I've always thought this was worse than MK3, UMK3. I still think that. I think that you're supposed to make progression and progress with your games. And though the graphics looked quote unquote cooler, which I don't think they do, I don't like the game. Now, I will say, Dreamcast version, Mortal Kombat Gold, I never really played too much of, but I think they added like Cyrax and Baraka and weapons, so I'll give that a C. I'm trying. But overall, Mortal Kombat 4, I'm not a fan of. If you like MK4, that's great, but for me, I feel like everything was janky, and it's my least favorite Mortal Kombat game. I still think it doesn't hold up to this day. All the other ones, I feel like hold up. This game, I can play this today and still be as disappointed as I was as a kid 20 years ago. So MK4, MK Gold, C and D. I think I'm being fair here. Let's brighten the mood and get our first S tier, Mortal Kombat Deception. This game right here, to me, is the epitome of 3D era greatness. You had Conquest mode, you had chess combat, you had puzzle combat. Those 3 modes alone give you so much replayability for a Mortal Kombat game. At the time, there was nothing like this full-fledged adventure mode the Conquest mode had. The entire Dragon King arc, having Damashi tell Shijinko to go for the Kamidogus, it's seeing how that unfolds and going through different generations of the Mortal Kombat story for the first time in an adventure game with side quests and, you know, secrets and stuff like that. It was great. To this day, you guys know we have a series on the channel, and you guys, every time I upload a Deception video, demand me to finish it for a reason. It's still a great game. The roster had a bunch of newcomers that people don't like, but for me, it feels like a Mortal Kombat game. Every Mortal Kombat game has newcomers. These just didn't have the quote-unquote potential because they were new characters for the time. You're trying to compare Dairu to Scorpion. It's not gonna happen. But if you go in open-minded, it might. Darius, Cobra, Havoc. Not every character was that bad. I still think to this day they're all extremely underrated. It's a great game. You had Onaga as your boss. What? You had Baraka and his choppy chop blades. I could sit here and talk about how great this game was forever. Mortal Kombat Unchained on the PSP was the exact same, but they give you, I think, Katana and Goro, maybe Jax. I can't remember off the top of my head. I haven't played that in forever, but like even the port of this game was superior than anything else we've talked about so far. So to me, when I think of peak 3D era games, I think of Deception. Every character also had 2 fighting styles plus a weapon fighting style. They had full-fledged fatalities, a first for the series as well when it comes to 3D era games. I think Deadly Alliance, every character only had like 1 fatality. So it was the epitome of everything great the 3D era had content, replayability, minigames, story, the music. I'm just now remembering the Crypt. The Crypt had so much cool things. Like the Crypt in this game was actually worthwhile because it was combining the Conquest mode with unlocking stuff as well. So you get a key inside the Conquest mode, get that key in the Crypt. Like there was just so much to be excited for with this game. There is just so much content, so much extras. They really did their best. They even gave you like an Area 51 demo that had so much replayability too as a kid. So to me, Deception is the epitome of everything great about the 3D era. So for me, that'll always be an S tier in my opinion. I love you. Hope it gets remade soon. I don't know if it will, but that is one of my favorite Mortal Kombat games of all time. I think we can all agree that Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks is going to be either A or S tier on pretty much everybody's tier list, because this is the epitome of NetherRealm Studios doing a game done right that's not just your typical fighting game. It is an adventure game featuring the Shaolin Monks. What's not to love? They took the Conquest mode and Deception and made its own game, standalone game. It was perfect. It was amazing. You had fatalities, combo strings. If you've never played Shaolin Monks, do yourself a favor. Go watch a walkthrough or a playthrough on YouTube, because you're going to see why people to this day still want a sequel. And again, just like Deception, I'm hoping one day down the line, all these 3D era games get remastered because they were great. And the one time Midway got a chance to make a game that wasn't your typical fighting game, just saying, kind of difficult to compare this to other Mortal Kombat games because this is not your typical fighting game. It is an adventure game. But compared to the other side Mortal Kombat games that were quote unquote adventure games, if you want to call them games, like Special Forces, Mythologies. Everybody wanted a sequel. There was supposed to be a sequel dubbed Fire and Ice based off of the relationship between Sub-Zero and Scorpion. That would have probably been chef's kiss S tier, but we'll never know. So at the very least, Shaolin Monks is always going to be an A, because I think if you've played the game, you know just how great it is. Not necessarily having a bunch of replayability because again, it's an adventure game, but it is so fun. And to this day, you can go back and play this and it still holds up pretty well, just like Deception. So for that, got to give it an A. It was a success all around and everybody still wants a sequel. A in my book. After hyping up just how great Shaolin Monks was, I feel like I have to put Special Forces right next to Mortal Kombat 4. I feel like that is fitting. These two were made for each other. Personally, I've never played Special Forces, and it's just because the connotation that comes with that game. When I hear that, I hear, oh, don't play it, don't play it, don't play it. So for that, I gotta give it a D. I've seen some walkthrough gameplay. I've never played it myself, but people say it sucks for a reason. I don't know. And I think this is where people start getting upset with me. Mortal Kombat 11, I'm gonna give you a B. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad game because it's not. It runs amazing. It looks beautiful. It is by and far the most pretty looking Mortal Kombat game we've ever had. However, I will say that from a gameplay standpoint, the slower pace, lack of combos in comparison to like a Mortal Kombat X, Mortal Kombat 9, for me, not my style. Usually, I'm more of a UMK3 type of guy than I am like a Mortal Kombat 2 guy. I like the idea of just having a broken game with infinites, and this game's just broken but without the infinites. Don't like the idea that you get punished for beating someone up. They get rewarded with a meter, and usually that can change the tide of the match. And breakaway system, the defense bar, I was not a fan of it, and sadly I really wanted to love this game. I really did, but every time I play this game I kind of feel like a piece of me dies, especially when we hop into Combat League. It takes a lot, and again, I'm not saying it's a bad game because it's not. It's just not a game for how I like to play. So for that alone, gotta give it a B. The story mode's not the best. It's not the worst. It's okay. The roster is okay. I don't want to sit here and talk too much about these games and their rosters, but it's an okay game. It's fun for what it is. It's cool. It looks amazing. It's current Mortal Kombat. It's a B. It's a B. It's a B. Do you hate me yet? I hope not. And to counter that, to understand why I want to give that a B, Mortal Kombat X gets a, do I want to give it an S or do I want to give it an A? I want to give it an S, man. I really do want to give MKX an S because for me, that was like the epitome of everything Mortal Kombat, because you had your variation systems that made sense. You still had broken characters. Trust me, I remember everything pre-MKXL. MKXL, honestly, I didn't even like as much as Mortal Kombat X. So technically speaking, MKXL should probably be like an A. But what are you gonna do? Tier maker only giving me MKXL, not MKX. MKXL to me was one of my favorite games of all time, just because it had a pretty decent roster. The combat kids being introduced to me was kind of cool because it kind of set the standard to what I thought was gonna be a next generation of amazing Mortal Kombat games. Did that happen? I'll let you decide. But for me, I was at least more optimistic at the time, open-minded. And again, the combos at least existed. There was a run button. Sub-Zero in that game was just as broke as he is in MK11, but he had combo strings that weren't just like the same two over and over again. You still had a lot of your classic minigames making a comeback as well. The game also looked pretty damn good for the time too. And in general, out of all the recent Mortal Kombat games, it's probably the one I played the most. I got probably like 4,000 matches on my main profile on that game played. So to me, I'll always have a soft spot for Mortal Kombat X because it was the epitome of, I think, everything I wanted for this next generation of Mortal Kombat. Could have been a bit more darker and grittier like we got with Mortal Kombat 11, more realistic and kind of in the realism vein, but it is what it is. So to me, for that, I'm always going to love Mortal Kombat X. I think it's a solid game. Not perfect, but I do think it still stands the test of time. Broken, but fun. And I think that's what Mortal Kombat should be. Broken and fun. That's what counts. MK11, broken, not fun. MKX, broken, fun. Let's be negative again. Now, I think it'd probably be way too simple to give MK versus DC a D, even though it probably deserves a D, but I'm gonna give it a C. I'm gonna give it a C because the concept and the idea of it is interesting to say the least. The story mode is okay. It's not the greatest at all considering what it was, but this was the game that gave us at least an introduction to, I guess you could say, a story told through like cutscenes and cinematics that we get to see at least in every game since then, pretty much from NetherRealm Studios. Mortal Kombat 9, Injustice, Mortal Kombat X, Injustice 2, Mortal Kombat 11. If I'm not mistaken, MK versus DC was the first game to give us like that main type of story mode experience that makes any sense. So for that, I'll give it a C. I like this idea of MK versus DC if it just wasn't rated T, because the fatalities suck. They suck. They're not good at all. The heroic brutalities are horrible. The roster is super small. There is no other game modes from what I remember. It was literally just like the story mode. I'm pretty sure it's as bare bones as I remember that. So for that, I can't give it higher than a C. I'm being nice by even giving it a C because it should probably be a D. I tried playing this like 2 years ago and it does not hold up at all. It's not fun. I will say I am intrigued with the idea that they had of the whole like grabbing people up close and personal and having like a small little like, I don't know what you'd even call that, like a clash fight in between the fight. But other than that, it's a forgettable experience, but it is a unique concept. MK versus DC, I just wish it was rated M, had real fatalities, had a bigger roster, and had more replayability. It really doesn't. So for that, it's a C. It'll never change in my opinion, either a C or a D. It's not good. It's okay, but not really. Don't buy it. Don't play it. Save yourself the time. Don't kill me, but Mortal Kombat Armageddon is gonna get a C just because I feel like that game could have been so much better. That was meant to be like the trilogy game for the 3D era, and I think it's lackluster just because, for starters, every character is missing a fatality. You have to do the creative fatality, which is cool for what it is, but if you're not a fan of the system, you'll never like it. And fatalities are such a big part of Mortal Kombat and the franchise as it is, so yeah. What were you thinking taking away fatalities? I understand it was probably easier to do things that way instead of making a fatality for every character on the roster, but like this, it's just like an experience that's not memorable at all. They gave everybody only like one moveset outside of like a weapon style, which kind of sucks too because Deception had 2 fighting styles and a weapon, so less is not more in this case. It sucks because some characters are really cool looking, but then the moveset was horrible, so you really didn't want to use them at all. The story mode was okay for what it was, the story of Taven and Dagon. It was pretty much Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks-esque, so if you liked Shaolin Monks, it's kind of like that, so that's kind of a plus. But outside of the story mode, you had Motor Combat, which was fun, but you can do every map probably within 20 minutes, and after that, it's like, okay, now what? So to this day, it holds up pretty decent, but it is, I feel like, a bit jankier than Deception because even going back to this day, if you go back and play Armageddon, I still feel like it is super notchy when trying to perform combo strings in comparison to like a Deception. I feel like Deception gameplay is just so smooth. You go and you play Armageddon and hitboxes are broken. It's not smooth at all to transition between combos from move styles. Like it's not complete. It feels like a broken bare bones version of Deception, and it sucks because again, this was meant to be like the be all end all of the 3D era games, and yeah, Could have been more of everything. That's really what Mortal Kombat Armageddon comes down to. It should have had a lot more, but it doesn't. It just kind of feels incomplete. Still a great game, still fun, but just kind of feels like it could have been a bit better. Got released at a weird time where the Xbox 360 and the PS3 were already coming out, and this was for like generations before that, so it was a really weird game. To me, it was weird having to go play this on like a PS2 when I had a 360, you know what I mean? So it was a really weird game. This was right before Mortal Kombat versus DC, so as a Mortal Kombat fan, it just seemed like things were gonna get a lot worse. Then thankfully, it got better with MK9, so okay game. You can go back and still play and have fun today, unlike Mortal Kombat Gold and MK versus DC, but compared to the other 3D era games, I just feel like it's lacking in terms of content, so it is what it is. Armageddon, I feel like could have been a lot better. So now that I completely tore down Mortal Kombat Armageddon, another 3D era game that is slightly better, that being Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, gets a B. This game at least gave characters fatalities, though some are ridiculous. They're still in the game, which is cool. This game didn't really have a story mode outside of arcade ladder endings. You did have like a conquest mode, but essentially that was like a character tutorial mode, pretty much, where you just traveled and your character went to like different levels, and every level was just a character breakdown. And I remember still doing like Raiden's impossible combo, and that took like an hour to do. It's here on the channel, but it's fun for what it is. For me, I think it's better than Armageddon just because the fact that going from Mortal Kombat 4 to this was a night and day difference. To me, I think that this game still has probably the best soundtrack when it comes to the character select screen. Even the characters on the roster, the new additions, aren't bad at all. Draman, Cyrax, Mavado, Suhao was in this game, so I mean, that's can't be any better than a B because of that, but still, it's got its own personality, its own flavor. We got to see the introduction of Frost. To me, one of the coolest things about Deadly Alliance was the fact that some characters had weapons, and if you had like Sub-Zero and the Corey blade, you could stab your opponent and the fucking blade would be through their stomach throughout the rest of the match, and the blood is just flowing down their body and their health is slowly being subtracted throughout the match. You couldn't use the blade anymore, so you lost the fighting style, but it was kind of worthwhile, and I think they took that out for Deception and Armageddon, and I think that was really cool. So I missed that. I missed stabbing opponents and seeing the weapon just sitting there and using that to your advantage. Like, that was such a cool idea at the time. Going from Mortal Kombat 4 to Deadly Alliance as a kid, for me, night and day difference. This is like the first game I owned on like a home console, like a PS2 of like that generation, so I was not complaining. Going from Mortal Kombat 4 to Deadly Alliance was a big win in my book. I liked it so much. I remember still having like papers and papers and papers with like fatality inputs I would have to write down off of like Game Informer books and stuff like that. So it was a different time. It was a different game. I believe Test Your Luck and Test Your Might were in this as well too. So did have some fun mini games, not as crazy as, you know, chess combat, but it still had some replayability. Deadly Alliance, Liu Kang is dead. That's one of the coolest intros of all time. Everybody else hates this version of Reptile. I think it's the coolest Reptile we ever got. So I love this game. The stages, the soundtrack. This had a bunch of good in it. So Deadly Alliance, I think, great game. The first 3D era game we got, I gotta say, a B, pretty solid. Mortal Kombat 9 gets an A. I mentioned it earlier. When I think of Mortal Kombat, I think of combos and broken. And when I think of combos and broken, I think of Mortal Kombat 9. Out of the recent games we've seen so far, like MK11, MKX, MK9 probably has the best roster of modern generation just because it has the classics from Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3. It was the retelling of the Mortal Kombat 1 story mode for the billionth time, giving us this generation's timeline. Honestly, had the living towers, had unlockables, still had secret fights, a bunch of fan service. The DLC was pretty OP too for the time, like seeing Freddy Krueger in a Mortal Kombat game. It had a guest character on the PS3 as an Xbox fan. That breaks my heart. We were supposed to get Marcus Phoenix. Cyrax combos were broken because they would always reset and they were like infinite for a very long time. Shao Kahn can kind of be a pain in the ass to beat at the end of the story mode, but overall the game was great. It's what pretty much started my YouTube channel, so there will always be a soft spot for this game. This game's roster, again, everybody always seems to point as Mortal Kombat 9 as like the standard bearer for like best roster of modern generation, and honestly, just looking at the roster currently, it's hard to beat this roster. It really is, but again, it's just got all the OGs, and you can't beat the OGs. You really can't. Test Your Sight, Test Your Might, I think we're also in this. I think we even got Babalities for the first time in forever. That was a big deal. When we were seeing footage of Babalities before MK9 dropped officially, there was some leaked content being posted on the internet at the time, and like that was a big deal because I don't think people were expecting to see Babalities make a comeback. So Babalities back in Mortal Kombat 9 were a big deal. Those compilation videos got millions of views. X-Rays, the introduction of X-Ray, X-rays. That was sick. I miss X-rays. Broken combos, great roster, great story mode, because again, it's the retelling of the first couple games. How can you screw that up? So MK9, great game. A tier, could probably be S tier depending on who you ask, but for me, in my opinion, from my experience, at least an A. I think that's fair. Love the game. I'll always go back and play it from time to time. So boom, MK9 gets an A. Broken fun goodness. You know, it's not broken fun goodness. Mortal Kombat Mythologies, that, my friends, gets a D. Mythologies gets a D. Now, personally, I've never played Mythologies because just like Special Forces, every time I try to or mention I want to play it, you guys say, don't do it, don't do it, you're gonna hate it. So for that alone, if you have that reputation as a Mortal Kombat game, it's really tough to get out of the D tier, I think. So Mythologies, I'll eventually play it one day and probably rage like crazy, but for that, it's gotta be a D. And that's why, again, Shaolin Monks will always be an A, because all the other adventure games are just so bad from all accounts. Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance on the Game Boy Advance is interesting. I'm gonna give that a D because I've played it myself and the sprites are so pixelated. It's like it was made in a microwave. It is a working game. It's super bare bones. It's got the roster from Deadly Alliance and everything. I think it even has Sector. That's cool, but it was not the easiest part to enjoy. As a kid, let's just say I was very disappointed. In comparison to the other ports we've seen in the past, why play that when you can play like Mortal Kombat 3 on your Game Boy Advance? At least that was playable. This Tournament Edition, not too playable. So for that, I gotta give that a D. And it sucks because Mortal Kombat Unchained is not here, and that deserves an A. That was a really good port of a game. There was also like an Ultimate Mortal Kombat for the Nintendo DS that had MK3 in it. That's what I played as well, and that is just eons better than this game right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 left. A few are clones. MK1, where are you going? You're going on the A tier. Mortal Kombat 1 is A tier for me. I played this game as a kid growing up on the Super Nintendo, not the Genesis. I know that every version has its variable differences. Some have blood, some don't have blood, some have different soundtracks, some don't. For me though, I played on the Super Nintendo, but you can pick whatever version you want. In general though, I think MK1 is A tier because this is what kicked off Mortal Kombat, and to this day, I can still go back and play this game and have fun. Can't say that about a lot of the other games, so this one, I can. MK4? No. MK1? Yes. It's really tough to beat the original. The trademark roster, the sound effects, the finish him, fatality, like Goro, everything about this game, Shang Tsung, the stages, the music, everything about this game. It's perfect. I have no complaints at all. Zero complaints about MK1. Who would I be sitting here saying, well, actually, the Mortal Kombat 1 roster could have been a lot better? Like, dude, if you don't like Mortal Kombat 1, you're crazy. Is it a bare bones experience? Yes. Is it still fun? Yes. Is it better than MK4? Yes. I can't imagine myself being up here and saying like, oh, well, you know, Mortal Kombat 1, the roster could have been a little bit better. Like, dude, I can't nitpick anything about this game because this is like the standard when it comes to fighting games. This is MK1. To me, it's a timeless game. And for that alone, the iconic game, MK1 will be A tier forever. So some of you guys, probably not. Maybe you like MK2 better, you like MK3 better. That's fine. I know for me, it's up there. There's beauty in just the simplicity of this game. Like, it does not have to have a million game modes, does not have to have a billion characters on the roster. It's just a timeless game that set the standard for years to come. It's Mortal Kombat in its infancy. Like, how can I sit here and be critical of Mortal Kombat 1? Like, sitting here and just trying to think of a complaint in my head is just, dude, it's perfect. It is perfect. I remember playing hours and hours and hours MK1, beating Goro by spamming Liu Kang's fireballs. Like, that's peak for me. So MK1 will be A tier forever. I could turn this game on right now today and still have a lot more fun than if I did that for MK4. And that's saying a lot because this is almost 30 years old this year. So there you go. MK1, timeless, iconic. There's a reason why MK is still around to this day, and it's because this game set the stage. Kano heart rip, Sub-Zero spine rip, Toasty. Like, dude, everything about that game is perfect. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and only one will be S tier again. Now, which one is S tier? UMK3. Boom. That is the top of my S tier. Deception, MK11, UMK3. Because again, broken, combos, fun. 3 things. UMK3 gave you more characters. For me, when I think of the classic Mortal Kombat games from the 90s, this is what I select over anything and everything. It'll always be UMK3. I liked MK1. MK2 was fine, but for me, the epitome is Mortal Kombat 3. And not just Mortal Kombat 3, but UMK3. Because the MK3 roster is missing people. It's missing Scorpion. How do you take Scorpion out of a game? A Mortal Kombat game. To me, UMK3 is the epitome of 90s Mortal Kombat because you had a run button, you had combos, and it was broken. And to me, that just makes for just so much fun. I can go back and play this game every day for the rest of my life and be fulfilled because it's so complicated yet so simple. It's so broken. Jade gives me nightmares still. Shao Kahn gives me nightmares still. The stages, the soundtrack, Cyrax in the sand, a run button. Boy, do I wish MK11 had a run button. Combos. I feel like I've already said that a million times. Combos. We like combos. Infinites, broken stuff, and that's what UMK3 was. So I thought UMK3 was pretty much the epitome of everything that Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 had into one game. And for that, dude, I can't complain at all. I loved UMK3. It's my favorite old-time game. 2D fighting game. And because of what I just said, you know, Mortal Kombat 3 was missing characters. I gotta put that on the C tier. I'm sorry, I gotta put MK3 on the C tier. It was missing Scorpion. How do you have a Mortal Kombat game, but you don't have Scorpion? How do you do that, MK3? They did it. So, not a bad game, but when UMK3 is so good, I gotta put MK3 on the C tier. And that might piss you off, and honestly, that's fine. It's okay. We'll get through this together. Mortal Kombat 2, I think I'm gonna go ahead and put on the B tier because MK2, in my opinion, reminds me a lot of Mortal Kombat 11 in the fact that, well, it's a great looking game. It's sounds amazing, it plays amazing, it looks great. The roster is not bad at all, it's iconic, but the lack of combos is, it's not my thing. Some people love MK2, and that's great. I enjoyed it growing up as a kid, but in general, comparing it to everything else, I need combos in my Mortal Kombat games, and because it has little to no combos, I gotta put it on B. Again, it's just my opinion. I am not the be-all, end-all of Mortal Kombat game rankings, so don't kill me, but I gotta give it a B, because OG Mortal Kombat I think is more fun just because it's OG Mortal Kombat, though it doesn't have combos either. It's hard to be higher than that, you feel me? And that's an A. Gotta make that a B. Not a bad game. B is not bad. B is passing the test. It's a lot better than C, but the lack of combos, I gotta give it a B. I'm sorry. That leaves us with these two. Mortal Kombat Trilogy, which is essentially if Mortal Kombat 3 to UMK3 was, you know, MK3 on steroids, I think it's safe to say UMK3 to Trilogy was Mortal Kombat 3 on crack, pretty much. So because of that, I gotta go ahead and give the... I mean, I believe the difference between the two was like the N64 version lets you use like bosses, and that's kind of broken. So I gotta give that a C. PlayStation version is probably a lot more balanced, and I gotta give that a B because again, it's not UMK3. They added in that whole like aggressor bar, and I'm doing that lately with Mortal Kombat Mugen, and I kind of feel like it's not really necessary. So, it's essentially Mortal Kombat 3. It can't be bad. Gotta throw that on the B tier, but there you go. This is my list of Mortal Kombat games, and this was kind of difficult to piece together. S tier being Deception, MKXL, MKX, if you want to call MKX, UMK3. I think these three games, to me, are my favorites of all time, and it's gonna be really tough to ever surpass these three. A tier being Shaolin Monks, MK9, OG Mortal Kombat. B tier being MK11, Deadly Alliance, MK2, PlayStation version of Trilogy. C tier, MK Gold because weapons and Cyrax. MK versus DC, which I'm being completely generous here. Mortal Kombat 3, the roster was lacking. I mean, come on, we got Trilogy for a reason, right? But Trilogy, it was broken. You had to use the bosses on the N64 version, I think. Gotta give that a C. D tier, the worst of the worst. MK4, I stand by that forever. Special Forces, Armageddon, because it was so bare bones. It could have been so much better. Had that giant roster, but no fatalities. What are you doing, Midway? Mythologies, and the Deadly Alliance ports for the Game Boy. I think I did pretty solid. What do you guys think? Is my list horrible? Do you hate me now? Let me know in the comment section down below. Again, it's just my opinion. I could sit here and talk about all this for forever, pretty much. I could analyze every single thing, and honestly, I don't want to take all your time, so just gave you a general consensus of my thoughts when I see the game's picture, what I think of it, what comes to my mind, and I hope I did a pretty good job. So drop a like if you enjoyed this tier list video. Should I do more of these tier list videos? Let me know in the comment section down below. Hope you're not too pissed off, and I'll see you in the next video.